So this is somewhat mundane, but I just have a couple of plastic pieces here that are broken, and I have this plastic epoxy that I've been pretty happy with, and I'm just going to show some repair techniques for broken plastics. These two here are to mount a cell phone to a tripod or any sort of device that you can just snap in. This one is broken along the bottom surface here, and a couple of other spider cracks along this surface. This one's just broken here along this line right there. And this is a bag clip. This is probably my least likely to be fixable, because that surface area of the broken piece here is pretty small, and it's going to have to withstand a force that's pulling that joint apart with a pretty significant force. So that one may not last, but we're just going to try it and see what we learn here. The first thing I'll do is just mix a somewhat generous amount of epoxy and give it enough for each of these three joints. Try to get as close as possible to an even mix of the two components. One is very viscous and the other is not. It can always be a little bit of a struggle to try to get equal output here. Pull it back in to try to end the stream without it dragging on forever here. Trying not to get the two streams crossed at the nozzle there. Can't just dip it in. Get that last bit off of it. Sure to get the polarity correct, and then just mix these two thoroughly. Okay, that's pretty good. This one I think I'm most confident about. It's nearly perfect, just snapping it into place. There's a lot of contact area there, and the only times that's really experiences stress are when you pull this spring-loaded mechanism to mount a camera in it. So I'm pretty confident that that will hold if we get a good amount of contact here. So just kind of dab this up onto the paper clip here and just try to coat pretty thoroughly all of the surface area of that broken plastic. I'll be pretty generous here because there's really not a problem with interference of extra solder on the bottom side. The top side can be a little bit of a problem, but we can use a little bit of sandpaper to scrape that away later if necessary. But I just want to get that bottom side really well coated. And I'm not just going to snap it directly together, but I'm just going to massage it a little bit while it's loose, so that that contact meeting surface also gets very wet on the other side. And when that's pretty thoroughly done, then I'll try to really press that in and hold it there. Try to see that all those plastic surfaces line up, which they do. And if I let go, there's really no movement there. So I'm pretty confident that that will be a very strong joint. Take that away here. This one I feel pretty confident about as well. That's a lot of surface area. The thing I'm less confident about is, you can see maybe a couple spider cracks beginning to form. I'm not going to deal with those right now, just because I'd have to crack it all the way open to see, and I'd rather just wait for that to happen naturally. It'll make it harder to repair this particular joint right now if I do that prematurely. Again, we'll just let this drip onto all of the available surface on one side. Grab a couple different scoops of it. You can let it get into that metal bearing as well, where the screw lands. It may not adhere perfectly well to the metal, but it being on that metal will grab all the plastic on the opposing side, and that should be plenty. And then we'll just close this up, letting it press all of that material out, and pressing it from the top side. It's definitely going to interfere a little bit with that bottom surface where the tripod would mount, so I'm just going to grab a little bit of corner of this paper towel and knock that down a little bit. You can grab a little bit of sandpaper later, but that will keep it from totally obscuring the tripod mount area. And this I'm going to have to leave a little bit delicately. So I'll just set that somewhat aside. And this last one, I'm going to remove this clip, and we'll have to figure out how to reinsert that later, but I'm going to pull this pin, and this is the little tiny piece of broken plastic that holds that hinge. And we'll have to insert that right here onto this broken off component. It's going to sit slightly inset, not on the very edge down here, but sort of up on this slanted area between the two. So we'll again just grab some of the epoxy here. And the longer we wait, the harder the epoxy gets. It's actually good in this case because this one doesn't have a perfectly stable mating surface. That piece is going to try to slide down just because of gravity. So putting a generous amount right on this surface, I'm going to grab this piece, Grab that little excess out of there. I'm just going to use some tweezers here to try to lower this into place and set it right where it needs to go. And since this one, if I were to press it straight down, it would shear out of the way. There's not much more I can do than just use my fingers to try to press it firmly into as close as I can see is straight, and let time do the rest. Looks pretty straight from the angles that I can see it. Of course, it's undergone a bit of stress in its lifetime already, but I don't see any major alignment problems, so we'll leave that to set as it is there. Take a look at the other ones. It's pretty close to true. It still has a little bit of a bow to it. Having the phone inserted is going to naturally undo that bow. Just make sure this really is about as clean as I can. Pressing gives a little bit of excess spewing out from that joint, but the epoxy is becoming a little bit stiffer now, so that should hold when I do these presses at greater tension. So there are my 3 repairs. This will take 24 hours to completely set, and we'll take a look after that, see how secure, straight, and strong each of these joints is. These are probably different plastics. That chip clip is certainly sort of a rubberier plastic. I give that the least chance of success just based on the stress, that pulling stress that that joint is designed to withstand, plus the amount of surface area being the least amount. This one I probably give the most likelihood of success. It would be naturally pinned behind the other mating surface anyway, and with that epoxy layer having so much surface area to mate, I really think that one's going to be strong. This last one here, just because we are seeing other brittle aspects of that surface, will probably hold for quite a while, but we may eventually see an additional failure. Maybe not along that same line that we just glued, but along maybe the opposite side, at which point we can apply this type of repair again. I'll wait to see what the results are. All right, it's been almost 24 hours here, and just checking in, everything looks like it's set in the right place. You can take a look here and just give it some test. It's very hardened feeling. Just going to grab the solid piece of this and pull this up. That is withstanding that. I'm not seeing much deflection on that joint there. That looks good. This piece, just going to flex it a little bit. Yeah, I am seeing the spider cracks that we didn't actually address, but the side of it that we repaired is not folding. So we may end up breaking this other piece soon, and I can fix that the same way, but this is a very strong feeling joint. Now this one is going to be potentially the most problematic. What I need to do is insert this again. I remember how it went. Oh, okay, yeah, so the spring just sits right here between the 2 pieces. What that basically means is these have to cinch down, and that pin has to go through all of them at once. A little bit of interference actually before we start. Interference where this sits in the other slot because of the epoxy being there. So I'm just going to scrape that away with a knife real quick. And that snapped right off. So that wasn't a very strong bond at all. The glue probably just doesn't stick to this type of plastic. Yeah, it came off so easily. So it hardened perfectly well. And there's just very thin sort of gel-like layer of plastic in the pink color on either end. But this is either so brittle that no glue is going to really hold it, or this is just not a bond that's going to work with that type of plastic. So now we know. I doubt that I'll try that again, but if I find a different type of glue, yeah, maybe worth try again. It didn't make it any worse. 2 out of 3, not bad. These are the 2 that I actually need to use upcoming here. This one I'm not that confident about lasting very long without doing it again, but this one looks pretty good. So thanks for watching.